After realizing that what your body is doing with that last video, what your body is doing is really trying to help you out. These are natural, healthy responses of your body to activate your system and get you ready to confront problems. And I hope you can start to think of it in that way. The stress, the anxiety, any emotion that you feel is a healthy response of your body to prepare you for something. And as you look at it that way and utilize it that way, it will really shift the way that your whole body is responding. Now, in this module, it's about the brain. And there's two really important parts of the brain, or two kind of really important functions of the brain that I want to talk about that will help address what's going on overall when you get really anxious or upset or whatever kind of emotion that kind of seems to just take over. Whether it be because of a trigger, whether it be because it's just this slow, gradual process that you just seem to lose control, that feel that pressure consistently pushing you towards to doing something you don't really want to do. We want to kind of get into the brain and how the brain then impacts the rest of the body. So these two parts of the brain that really kind of impact your thinking and the way you kind of really interact with the world is there's kind of the front brain and the back brain. Now, the front brain is where logic, reasoning, kind of principles, ideals, kind of consequences, higher thinking functions of the brain. Kind of the front brain, I guess it kind of wraps over through the top. This is what really is more developed in humans than any other species. This part of our brain, that kind of upper gray matter, really helps us think critically, actively about all the things that are going on around us, where we are being very conscientious and again very rational and logical. Okay, this isn't where kind of those emotions feed into. It's not where they're kind of grounded in. It's just this idea of kind of A plus B equals Z. These kind of thought patterns, right? The back brain is more of that irrational or more instinctual part of the brain. It is where that emotion center is driven, the amygdala, the limbic system. That's kind of back here, more back there, anyways. And these two parts of the brain, in general, balance each other out. When they're balanced out, we have what a lot of people will call kind of a wise mind. We use wisdom. We have our logical, rational part of the brain, but it's guided by those emotional cues that tell us kind of what's happening in the world to kind of respond to and then interact with the world around us. A lot of times, some of the examples I use is if this is a car, the frontal lobe or that upper part of the brain is kind of the steering wheel and the brakes. Kind of to stop, think about this, let's kind of decide where we're going. That back part of the brain is more the gas. Right? The kind of and those emotions kind of compel us or give us that impulse to do something, take action, especially anxiety. Anxiety wants us to face something, to deal with something, to run away from something. Those natural responses to kind of deal with a problem. Gas, guidance system, right? And so, again, when those are in order, we can drive around and get around where we need to do, where we need to go and do what we need to do so that we can kind of function in life appropriately and regularly. Now, the problem with this is kind of this back brain was developed first, we can say evolutionarily or even just human to human. For children, this part of the brain develops quicker, and then this part isn't fully developed, they say, until about 26 years old. So this part develops, and then this part, and it's this constant progress and constant growth. Now, what happens is when we start to get really upset, really emotional, really kind of just going more and more off that instinct and not so much on kind of values and principles, when we just give in to desires and kind of those natural instincts too much or too often or too kind of in the moment, we're overwhelmed by that. What actually happens? So let's say we get really anxious, right? Something triggers us. We start to get really worried, really stressed out, really anxious, and we're not utilizing it in a positive way. We're not coping with it. We're not managing it. The amygdala will kind of activate so much and shift the flow of blood in a way that the frontal lobe actually doesn't get blood. It'll cut off that blood flow to that part of the brain and shift it to other organs and arms and legs to prepare us for something physically threatening. Okay, so the body's trying to help us out, but inadvertently is cutting off the guidance system and preparing us for something that we need to kind of attack. We need to run away from. That we don't really need to be thinking about here and there. We just need to get away. We need to do something about it. So cuts off the blood flow. Now think about if the blood isn't flowing there, that part turns off. And just like our arm or our hand, when the blood flow isn't flowing there, or when we kind of fall asleep on it and that limb falls asleep, it becomes very sluggish and slow. So people a lot of times when they talk about this is they think they're looking through a cloud, or kind of their thinking gets really fuzzy. It's very hard to think clearly about what's going on. So if we get too activated in that back brain, that front brain goes to sleep. And then it's really hard to make conscientious, intentional decisions. Shifting the way we think about stress will help with this problem so it doesn't become overwhelming. The vessels will stay open, like she says in the video, blood flow will happen, and instead of losing focus and losing concentration, we will be able to think clearer and focus better when we're not fighting against our own system. Other things that we need to kind of take into consideration is how are we coping with those moment to moment things. So when we think about a problem, when we start to obsess about a problem or ruminate about things, we're not really dealing with it, and the body just continues to get more active, and it becomes more and more difficult to think clearly about how do I really deal with this problem. And when we get really flooded with those emotions and those hormones and chemicals that get dropped when we get to that point, it can take anywhere from 15, 20, 30 minutes to really flesh out all of that out of our system to be kind of back to a neutral place. 20 to 30 minutes of trying to calm down, trying to relax, doing some meditations, exercise, doing something that kind of flushes that out of our system, utilizing that energy in a way that helps us relax, right? When it comes to addictions, when we start to feel that intense distress, our bodies or our minds, that instinct says, what will help me feel relaxed? What will bring me down to a state of calm, quicker, faster? What's going to feel good? And whatever the addiction or the impulse or the compulsion is, it will push you in that direction. Do this, do that. It's a quick fix. We want something fast. We want something easy. We want it now, here. And that can be the problem. So learning to recognize those cues, learning to recognize when that back brain is really starting to activate. Most of the time, it's not all or nothing kind of thing. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes there are triggers, especially if traumas and other things have been involved that have programmed the brain to react really quickly. Most of the time, though, it is a slow process. We start to slowly get amped up. The brain slowly goes to sleep, and then we act out. Again, that can be within a matter of minutes, hours, or days. So learning to kind of recognize where you are, learning if that you're starting to feel kind of that your brain is kind of slowing down and sluggish, maybe it's time to do some coping, to do some grounding, find some ways to bring your system back in check. And to recognize that if your body is feeling something, just like in the video we watched, this might be the time to really lean in. What am I feeling? What's going on here? Lean into what those emotions and the stress and anxiety is compelling you to do. What is it? What's the problem it wants to fix? And learning to address that at the root, learning to kind of get in deeper through journaling, through writing, through reflection, and then doing things actively to fix that will help ease that back brain. When we're taking action towards something, that back brain will start to settle down, and our frontal lobe will be able to help guide that decision making and help guide that processing. So really important things to with this module to kind of consider: the front brain back brain interaction. We need both of them. We need our emotions, we need our instincts, we need that gas to go, but we also need that frontal lobe to be intact. We need it to be awake and alert and ready to guide us in what we want to do according to our values, according to what we believe is right and wrong, according to kind of our higher thinking of consequences and critical thinking. So finding ways to process what's compelling us to move forward, to accept that what our body is trying to do is help us out, and then process those things that are triggers. Process those things that are hurting us, that are distressing us, that are causing us grief and pain and sadness. To dig in and lean into those emotions, to not fight them, to allow them to come. Any emotion you feel, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, those emotions are not going to kill you. That instinct is to help you. So figuring out how can I utilize this and how can I learn from this and how can I be okay with what I'm feeling because it's to help me out. The functions of the brain is built that way to protect us, to respond quickly to problems without having to think about all the nitty gritty details. Consider these things, consider these principles in the way you think, the way your brain functions, and finding ways that help you ground yourself and cope. In later modules, there will be coping skills that we will learn to kind of help that process along. But to understand this principle of your front brain, your back brain, they're working together in tandem to help you deal with problems, to help you face this world that is full of problems, and that you have the capacity, because your body is helping you, to deal and address and process anything that comes your way or anything that has come your way. Write about this, consider this, put things into practice, and see what comes up.